Crusher!
Don't believe in aliens, they're never going to land. Don't believe in cryptids that leave footprints in the sand. Don't believe in spirits appearing from the dead. The only demons out there are living in your head. Dream crusher, the Lord of non-belief. If you can't prove it, no one can get ready for the dream. A dedicated skeptic, we all know what that means. He's lurking in the shadows and crushing all your dreams. Dream crusher, the Lord of non-belief. If you can't prove it, no one can get ready for the dream. A dedicated skeptic, we all know what that means.
Hey there, everybody. What's going on? It's Friday night.
Happy Friday!
Donna's here. I'm looking forward to this show. So tonight we do have a guest, and we'll be getting the guest on in just a moment here. But I do want to say hi to some people. I don't know why I took my glasses off. I can't read anything when I do that. But I want to go through this list really quick because I want to spend a lot of time with the guest. So I want to say hi to Kat Mack. It's date night. Tina JT, what's up? Thanks for the card. Mysteries Untold by Michael Burkeen. We got Luis Parry. Blast Rights is in the house. Going through. Star Wheels in the house. Hitting the like button. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Jade Kitten's in the house too. Malachi's here. I'm going to go through really quick here tonight. So I apologize if I miss anyone. I'm going down the list here. I see a lot of. I know there's a lot of people. I think they're all lurking.
There's like 50 people.
Am I missing? Am I missing stuff? I'm look. Oh, Kit Ford. There it is. I see a lot of conversation. You shush over there.
Go down to around 8 o'clock.
All right. Oh, I see that Kenny Biddle guy. I heard he's handsome. Hey, Abs. What's up? Obscure Reference Man. Obscure Reference Man is in the house. Hey, Tim. How you doing? Let's see. Going down more. I see Abs again. Wandering Wenchy. Hello. Good to see you. What else do we have? We have. Oh my goodness. Am I missing people? I don't think I'm missing people. Star Wheels here. Chris Williams is here. Kendra. There you go. I'm getting into it now. Steve Sackman. Sarakman. Oh, I messed up your name. I'm sorry. John without an H is here. Shauna. Diane is here. Gemis is 23. Oh my goodness. Florio. Phantom Files. I'm messing that up. Obviously, I haven't drank enough.
I know.
Let's see. Entity 7, Joe Fatale is here. I got his name right this time. I screwed it up last week. Laura B. Vanessa. Cathcart, nice. Good to see everyone here. I think I'm jumping through. Diana's here. I see Diana. Amy. Lots of people. Lynn S. Wayne Dawson. William Wheeland.
Jeffrey Funk.
Richard. Steph is here. Richard's got a Prince. All right. So I'm jumping down. Okay, let me go with the rules real quick so we can get to our guest tonight, because it should be a lot of interesting stories tonight. I'm looking forward to this. So the rules, boom, right there. You are welcome to ask questions. That's what this show is about. It's a learning show. It's an educational show. So we all learn together. On that note, rule number 2 is that if I don't know something, I'm going to tell you, because I don't know everything. And sometimes the guest doesn't know everything. So keep that in mind. If we have time, certainly look it up for you. But probably won't, and I'll write it down in my notebook for homework for next week. Or actually, there is no show next week. So it'll be the week after this time. I'll have, that's giving me 2 weeks to actually do homework.
I can do a show next week.
No.
Oh, what are you talking about?
Rule number 3 is that we follow the Patrick Swayze rule here, and that's be nice. You can be in the comments section, and you can make all the comments you want. You can disagree. You can debate. Have a conversation. That's what I encourage. Have a conversation, but do not devolve into name calling or anything like that if you disagree. If you basically don't be an a-hole, that's it. Because if you do, Donna will boot you out of here.
Yeah, I don't have any problem doing it.
Yes, hear that? She's in the mood. She's in that kind of mood. We do have a guest tonight, so if you do have a question for either myself or the guest, hopefully the guest, do us a favor, put a capital Q in front of your question, and that way it helps Donna pick it out from the conversations that are going on, and we will save it for the second hour. And then rule number 5 is my favorite of all time.
Drink up.
There you go. That was from the great beyond. So with that, I'm going to put on the special guest frame, and I'm going to bring on our guest, Mr. Bob Perry. Hello, sir.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing really good.
Yeah.
It is nice to see you.
Now, if I have a question, can I click the Q?
You have special privileges. You can just ask. That's what happens when you're a guest on the show. So I appreciate you coming on. We were featured in one of my videos on
Right, yeah.
CFI channel, and you were given your expertise on ground penetrating radar. We had a really good conversation, both over the phone and an interview like this. I found it really fascinating, and I asked again if you would come on and actually do an interview, and thankfully you agreed, so I'm very happy for you to be here. And,
I'm happy to be here, too.
Awesome.
You're my very first podcast, by the way.
Yes! Heard it here first, people.
I've been on a lot of videos and TV programs, but this is my first podcast.
Awesome. Well, I hope this is a great experience for you, and that you will agree to do many more, because they are fun, and it gets you out there, and it gets people understanding what you do, which is the goal for tonight, for us to understand what you do, how you do it. And on that note, first-time guests on the show, they always have a standard question, and that's, what's your origin story? So basically, how did you get into ground penetrating radar work? Tell us.
Well, I actually started off, I'm a technical illustrator by profession.
Oh.
And many, many years ago, I was working on a contract job at one of the major manufacturers of computer equipment. And the person that was in I was working for, I was doing the job for, they happened to manage a cemetery. And he knew I had a background in technical illustration and wanted to know if I could take a look at their old cemetery maps that they have, going back to the mid-1800s. And then if I could redraft them and computerize them for them, because this is way back this is back in like 1975, around there.
Wow.
And I said, sure, I can take a look at it. And I'm sorry, about 1999, sorry.
Okay.
And so I said, yeah, I could take a look at the maps, and they were all in pieces, and some were on box covers, and all kinds of scrap pieces of paper. And so anyways, I took the job on, and I said, let me try to do this. And So I'd never done it before in my life. And so I decided to take it on, came up with a price. They agreed to the price, and I began to collect all that papers that they had. And then I began drafting. I have software that I use to do all my illustration and my illustration and mapping with. And they loved it. They absolutely loved it. And when I was finished with it, I handed it to them. And then I got to thinking. I said, "Geez, I wonder if there's other cemeteries out there that may need my mapping services." So what I did is I decided to contact a lot of these cemeteries, and I started off with mailing out just a little postcard. It said, "Are you in need of cemetery mapping services?" And so anyways, I mailed the postcard out. And I would sit down in my front room, I'd licking a stamp and putting people on there, 1,000 a week, and I was mailing them out. And for every 1,000 that I mailed out, I was directing them to go to my website so they could actually see my website and then request more information about my services that I offer. And so probably out of every 1,000 postcards I mailed out, I probably got my website probably got maybe 40, 50 hits.
Okay.
From that 40, 50 hits, I would always generate probably maybe 2 to 4 projects that came in. But those projects didn't come in right away. They take time for them to come in, that sort of thing. So
Right.
So every time I mailed them out, I'd always end up with all these people. And then as I went along mapping all these cemeteries and going around the country, and I going on site mapping the cemeteries, coming back, I noticed that there was a lot of areas within the cemetery that had no headstones, but there was open areas. You could have like 15 headstones here, then an open area, and another 15 headstones. And I was wondering, I wonder if there's any unmarked graves in these locations. And I was thinking about the equipment that might be. And I remember when I was in Vietnam, I was on river patrol boats, and we pulled into a base camp. It was a Korean base camp. And we went in on land, and I happened to see these guys dragging around this big box. Okay, this was in 1969, and dragging around this big box. And I didn't know what they were doing. I was just kind of curious. And then I got thinking about it. I said, I wonder what that was. And I found out later on that it was called ground penetrating radar. And I said, "Geez, this is perfect for what I need for my work." So anyways, I got thinking about it, and I talking to different people that manufacture the equipment, and come to find out the leading company in the world is two towns over from me.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, 2 towns over, and called GSSI, Geophysical Survey Systems. And they manufacture there's about 6 companies out there right now that manufacture this equipment. But anyways, this was back in 2001. And so I purchased the equipment. And the funny part about it is that you can see my equipment in the background.
Yeah.
You see the equipment up there in the background. And the funny part about it was that there was the middle of winter, and I did have a job coming up in Georgia. And so, but I had no idea how to turn the computer on. So, and of course it was snow outside. I live up in New England, and there was snow outside, and I wasn't able to take the equipment outside. So when my wife wasn't home, I have a long hallway. So I just set up I set up a roll of paper on the floor, right? And I'd start practicing going from one side to the hallway, one end to the hallway to the other end, collecting data. And then I'd come back down and look at the data on the computer, that sort of thing, and I'd go back and do it again. So then the first job, I went down to Statesboro, Georgia, for this particular job, and I did the job, and they absolutely loved it. And I mean, I looked at it, I had no idea what I was really doing, So anyways, what it turned out to be is that they really liked the job, and before you know it, here I am. I have cemetery mapping, and I have ground penetrating radar. Well, one of the elements that was missing from my job was using GPS to locate the headstones. Back then, I was old school mapping, using rods and that sort of thing, walking sticks and everything else that you deal with. It never did GPS. So I decided to buy a GPS system to add that to my system. I bought a Carlson GPS unit, and it was great. I had no problem. The first job I actually used it on was in Washington, D.C., and that was at the Historic Congressional Cemetery down there.
Oh, wow.
And it actually was a 2-year job, but I'll get into that in a little bit.
Okay.
So anyways, what I did was that I started using it, and I found out that GPS is great when you have an open area. But when
Okay.
you start getting under trees and and that communication between your handheld device and satellites, it mixes up. So I could be, I'm at a headstone. I take a shot. I take another shot at a headstone. I'm actually tracking all these items on my handheld computer, so I can draft these items in the back. And so I get under a tree, and I'm standing there trying to take a shot, and it's in what they call a float mode. And so here we have the GPS is in a float mode on the computer, and what it's doing is trying to triangulate at least three satellites to get a fixed reading. But if you're under a tree, you're not going to get it, okay, because it screws it up. So anyways, I did that, and if you did take a shot, that's what you call when you take a point. If you do take a shot,
I thought I was going to.
No.
I want to do shots.
I thought about doing that on some of these jobs I've been working on. But anyways, I found that wasn't very good. And so at that particular point, I decided to see if there's any other type of equipment out there that I could actually use that wouldn't have to deal with satellite. Well, the other thing about satellites is that the companies, when you're doing this type of GPS, there are companies that have up and down the East Coast here, they own the network. And for you to join that network, even though I needed maybe 3 or 4 spots, they wanted like $600-700 just to be 1 day of network use.
Wow.
Wow.
Right. This is back then. Now a lot of the states and the towns, a lot of states have their own network, key network. So that's a lot of money to spend for just to collect some points, on the ground.
Right.
And so I decided, well, that's pretty tough because a lot of if you've ever been in cemeteries, there's all kinds of trees in cemeteries, a lot of them, and a lot of buildings. And if you're standing beside a building, you're not getting any GPS. So anyways, I decided, well, let me look into something else. And I heard that there was called robotic mapping. And basically robotic mapping is that I still have my handheld unit, but I have my tripod on my RTS. It's the computer that if you're driving down the street and you see these land surveyors out there and they get this big yellow tripod thing. Okay. And what happens is that tripod thing was very useful for me because what I could do, I could set that up at any place in the cemetery and I can go out up to 2,000 feet away, and there's a laser beam that goes from that tripod to my handheld unit, my prism that's on the top of the pole. And I can pinpoint a marker, a golf ball in any place within that cemetery up to 2,000 feet away.
Wow.
See, so it was pretty good technology.
Yeah.
The only drawback to that is that if you walk behind a tree or you walk behind a monument or something like that, it breaks the beam.
Yeah.
And it's actually when you break the beam, it's actually funny when you look at the computer and when you look at the unit collecting showing the laser beam. It's going like this. It's looking to reconnect, and it's doing this. It's going all over the place, and finally it zeroes in, and then you you get right back on. Sometimes it takes maybe 2 or 3 minutes to get that.
Okay.
But that's basically how I got into the business itself, by mailing out the postcards and then following it up, going out to the cemeteries and mapping the cemetery using old school techniques. And then all the way up to today, I still do the same. In fact, I was out today doing a job, and it's the same things, right up until this moment, today. And it's just for me, it's a passion. It's something I really enjoy doing. And it's good physically. It's good physical too, because you're out there you're pushing this GPR cart, and sometimes you're going up hills, sometimes you're going down hills, and so. But by bringing that GPR stuff into the business, along with the robotic mapping and and then my website on top of that, it's pretty lucrative business for me right now. So
Okay. Well, that's good. That's good to hear.
yeah.
So GPR, ground penetrating radar. Can you tell us how does it work? Like what happens when, because I've seen the clips and hopefully everyone has at least looked you up a little bit, but you see the clips of you rolling a cart going back and forth once in a while, but going down in rows. Like what are you looking for and what do you find?
Okay. Well, as you can, I don't know if you can see the whole cart back here.
Yeah.
This is the computer. This is the computer up here,
Okay.
and then down below we got a 400 megahertz antenna. The red thing you see down there.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a 400 megahertz antenna. And what GPR does, it measures soil disturbance. And if there's an anomaly in the soil that's been disturbed, it will show up on the computer.
Okay.
So what it looks like is that as you're going across the ground, the radar is going in the ground. I have it set for 10 feet under the ground, and it goes in the ground at 24 scans a foot. So as you're scanning across the ground, it hits an anomaly. It could be a rock or a pipe or a tree root or whatever it may be. And what you see on the computer screen is an inverted U shape. It's
Okay.
like this. Yeah, it's an inverted U shape. It goes up and down. And basically that's actually what you're looking at. Now, if it's a casket or a vault that's in the ground, it's very pronounced. As you're going across, it goes in the ground at 24 scans a foot. It comes up the side of the coffin, across the top of the coffin, back down the other side. And what you see is an inverted U shape on the computer screen.
Okay.
Now, if it's a old collapsed grave down in the I specialize in the 1700 time period. Now, if it's an old collapsed grave down there, it doesn't look like an inverted U shape because everything's collapsed down to about 2 or 3 inches. And you can actually tell when you're on the land. You can see on the land, there's usually like a cemetery, whatever, it has a little bit of an inversion in the ground.
Yeah.
And I can tell something when I'm pushing the cart, sometimes the wheels will just kind of dip into the ground and you can tell that there's a impression there. Well, when you're looking on the computer screen, you don't see this hyperbolus on the computer screen. What I see on the computer screen, it looks like a plate of scrambled eggs because everything is messed up, but yet you see the anomalies. I mean, you see the cutting marks, dig marks, and all of a sudden you see this like a little plate of scrambled eggs.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Is that because it's different materials, so it's reflecting differently?
Everything reflects differently. For example, a pipe in the ground would reflect one. It all depends. If it's like rebar in the ground, the image that you're seeing are like little A shapes, little coin shapes like this here.
Okay.
If it's like a rock that's in the ground, it comes up depending on which way you're going. If it's a round rock, you can get the round, but you go the other way because sometimes you can tell that it's a rock. But with a grave, it's a little bit different because I can scan the grave this way, going perpendicular,
Okay.
and then I can scan it lengthwise. So what I do is not only do I get at the peak of the curve, going at the peak of the curve is the center point of the grave.
Okay.
Okay, and then when it comes down then I can scan lengthwise. Now we're talking about if we got a vault, if it's a vault in the ground, a casket that's in the ground. So yeah, I can get it lengthwise. And those pretty stand out, very, very nicely. Now, if there's a vault in the ground and the vault is flat, the radar will come in, hit the bottom of the vault, come up the top, and then flatten out and go back down the other side.
Okay.
And sometimes when you're looking at the vault, when it goes up and it starts flattening out, you see a little blip there, and then it goes and see another blip there. Well, those are the walls.
Okay.
Those are the walls that kind of deal with. And so that's kind of like the couple of different things that you kind of see in there, but everything is different. They all have, everything in the ground has little upside down U shapes on it.
Okay. And the coffins, I guess when you say collapse coffin, I'm assuming that it's because the material was wood and it degraded over the decades and stuff. And it's just, everything just collapsed. And then you get that divot in the ground because the ground sunk in.
Yeah.
Do you find one of the reasons I reached out to you was because I was doing an investigation on a place called the Monroe House, and you were featured on a television show. They brought you out and to look in the backyard to see if there were graves in the backyard because they suspected there were graves. And so when you do find something, like you usually do cemeteries, right? That's your main work,
Yeah,
right?
that's my bread and butter.
Okay, that's your bread and butter. Yeah.
But I also do jobs. I for movie films. I do police investigations and stuff like that. So yeah.
Ooh.
So when you do, yeah, we're gonna have to get into that. When you do find something, even if it's in a cemetery, how do you approach it? How do you, I guess, interpret your results to the owner or whoever hired you? You tell them like, this is a grave.
No,
This is,
no.
okay. What? Walk us through that.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of issues out there which when you start saying that there's a grave in the ground without actually disinterring it or digging it up, it's not a grave. It's just an anomaly.
Okay.
And that's the first thing that people have to understand about some of these newspaper articles that they bring out. They'll say, okay, this company found 100 and some odd graves, but they didn't dig anything up. Okay, so how do you know it's a grave? I mean,
right.
a good example of this is that I was doing a job one time, and this is up in Manchester, New Hampshire, and there was a company there that was there before me, about 5 years before that, and they said they located 2 graves. This is way out in the woods. The property was 13 acres. The property was sold by the church, and they were making a housing development in that particular area, affordable housing. So they had a bunch of areas. They had 13 areas that they wanted me to small areas wanted me to scan because it was reported that there was graves in the ground there. And we disinterred every one of these so-called anomalies that they had. We dug them up.
Okay.
And 2 of the anomalies I thought were perfect examples of graves. Okay, and I told them, I said, we're looking at two things at a high probability of a grave. We should dig these up. Well, we dug them up. One turned out to be a 50-gallon drum, and the other turned out to be a 24-inch drain line that was broken up and buried in the ground.
Wow.
Wow.
They looked identical to graves.
Okay.
Identical.
And that's just because you're going. I imagine, yeah. I'm just imagining now with our conversations already and looking at some of the stuff because you sent me a video or two showing the results. But I imagine going over either one because they're circular, at least one way, they're circular. It would give you that inverted U shape going over it.
Yeah, but even the collapsed graves, sometimes I may be picking up a skull. I may be picking up a chest cavity. Chances are picking up bones like leg bones and arm bones. No, you wouldn't do it because it's too collapsed down. Something like I did a job that was mixed in with some tree roots. Oh. And the only thing, when a tree root gets into these old graves, they get it. They're all over the place. Mm-hmm. And one of the jobs that we disinterred because they were repurposing that land, so we had to remove the burials and move them to another location. And so as I was going by the tree root, I happened to see all the roots and stuff there, but then I got a solid anomaly. And I said, "What the heck is this?" So, anyways, I come back and I looked at it. And so, anyways, we decided to dig it up. And what it was a plate about a foot long, about 8 inches wide, with glass. And it was originally attached to the top of the casket.
Oh, wow.
You see, so it was collapsed down. And that was the only thing that if I didn't pick up that anomaly, I wouldn't even have bothered with it. But those tree roots, because it's very difficult to see tree roots versus actual bodies because the tree roots are all intertwined with each other. So
wow.
So it was a metal plate.
Okay. Wow, that's cool. So you've done a couple paranormal shows. I'm curious, like because that's how I found you, and I'm curious, like how did you get involved with that? Not like any one show in particular, but I don't know how many you've worked on, but how did you get involved? Is that just a random thing, or did they know?
Well, they usually what happens, like any of the programs. I've been on the History Channel, I've been on the Travel Channel, I've been on Destination America, I've been on I was asked by Josh Gates to come on to do something. They were doing one of the DB Cooper stories, but COVID came out and I wasn't able to go on that. So I've been on a bunch of them. So they'll call me, they'll track me down, they'll call me to try to find out, if I'm available to come out into the job site,
Right.
to scan it because they want to add that to the program.
Right.
And so I did get a call. I got a call from Nick. If I'm okay to say that, yeah, Nick, yeah. And I got a call from Nick, and his staff called me,
Mhm.
and they were doing a job out there they were doing a job in the Monroe House,
Okay.
and want to know if I could come out there they're going to surprise Nick and Christina. They're going to surprise them. So, anyways, I showed up. I brought in a bunch of my hats and a couple of T-shirts and stuff. I have T-shirts that have Bone Finder on it, like you see my logo there.
Right.
T-shirts on the back and the front, so they're pretty good selling tools. But anyways, they introduced me. I was introduced on the grounds, and that's how I met Nick to start off with. And we filmed that, as you saw, we filmed that particular program. And then I was on the Hinsdale House, which was I've been on 2 of the Hinsdale House shows,
Okay.
and I've been on I'm also I've been on the Conjuring House.
Yeah, the Conjuring. Yeah.
I can never pronounce that word.
Conjuring.
Conjuring House. Okay.
Conjuring. Yeah. I got you. Don't worry. I got your back.
Yeah, and he's got your bag.
I got it.
Yeah.
And he's the one.
I've written a lot about that place.
Yeah. I was in on that one there, and my job there was to scan the back of the yard.
Right.
And like on the Hinsdale House, I was actually in the basement, and that's where they were saying that poltergeists and all kinds of other stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily go along with any of that stuff. But I did have a personal experience. I'll tell you about it later. But remind me, and I'll tell you about my personal experience on something like that. But anyways, we did. I was in the basement, and the Conjuring House. I end up scanning in the backyard. And unfortunately, there was another podcaster happened to find out what I was doing, and he kind of ambushed me. I'm out in the back, and Nick's out in the back. We're all looking for these anomalies, and here he is, comes with his podcast camera down there, and he starts, he's sticking the camera in my face and talking to me about it and stuff like that. And I said to Nick, I said, "Who's he? Who's this guy?" So he says, "Oh, that's a podcaster that comes out with me sometimes." That's all right. So anyway, I said, "Okay, that's cool."
Yeah.
But typically the movie producers or the network or the a company that manufactures and that produces films, they'll contact me, they'll call me, and they'll ask me if I'd be interested in coming on the show. A good example of that is that I was called by a gentleman. I'm not going to use his last name, but a guy, GUI, and he was in the process. He was doing an investigation on the Lost Clipper, which is he was on the Hawaii Clipper, I should say, and his program was going to be called the Lost Clipper, the Hunt for the Lost Clipper. And what that was about was that in 1938, there was 3 airboats flying around the South Pacific: the Hawaii Clipper, the Philippine Clipper, and the China Clipper. Well, the Hawaii Clipper had the latest technology of engines, and the Japanese wanted this technology. So when the Hawaii Clipper landed in Truk Lagoon, which was a stronghold for the Japanese Navy back in 1938, when they stopped there to refuel, they smuggled 2 rogue aviators on board as mechanics. But they were Japanese, but they were mechanics. Smuggled 2 rogue aviators on board. As the flight took off again, they commandeered the vessel at gunpoint, brought it back to Truk Lagoon. It had 15 members on it. There was 6 pilots and 9 passengers. And it was also carrying $3 million worth of ransom notes for Amelia Earhart.
Oh wow!
Okay? So they found this Amelia Earhart satchel. They found her flight log and her passport in a bank in Saipan. And then they found parts of the Hawaii Clipper in Saipan as well. So in the process of doing all this, they marched the 15 Americans into a prison camp / hospital and interrogated them. Shortly thereafter, after a week, they brought them across I call it a street, but it was like a dirt road pathway into a field, executed them.
Wow.
They buried them in a very shallow grave, head to foot, in a small area, and they held the bodies down with chicken wire.
Ugh.
And then they poured concrete on top of them. And so this is where I come in to the story, because I could scan through concrete, you name it, I could scan through it. And so my job basically was to be over there and to scan the different areas, the ground, as well as looking for graves. Now, the interesting part about this is that I still make comments about this. This particular location had 2 crematoriums on it. Okay. So why would they, the only way I think they were probably using the bodies for ransom or something along that line. But why would they not use these crematoriums? I mean, it was a prison camp / hospital, and they experimented on natives there and stuff like that. And so they were done with the bodies, they cremated them.
Right.
You know, and why would they bury them in a shallow grave and pour concrete on top of them? I never understood that. But anyways, we were there for 2 weeks, scanning it and scanning the ground and stuff like that. It became, it was a very exciting experience for me, because I get to see what real Japanese bunkers look like. Okay. And the amazing part to me that really, really choked me up is that I got thinking about this. When I was in Vietnam, I was on River Trobos, like I said. I'd be going down the river, and you can see the huts and stuff like that on the water, and then going up a river on the coastline. Well, we stayed at a place called Chuuk, Chuuk. Chuuk, that's the name of the island. And we had to go to I can't name the island, but we had to go to another island by boat. And a speedboat. It goes all the way over to this other island, and then we get off. And the funny part about this was, I was on this boat, the smell of the engine, the salt water, and then looking at the coastline as we're going over. Man, I was 23 years old again.
Wow.
It brought me right back to Vietnam.
Wow.
That's exactly the experience that I had. I was 23 years old again.
Wow.
And what an exciting experience, when you kind of deal with that. So,
yeah.
So anyways, we didn't. There was no. I didn't find anything that dealt with anomalies. I did find, and what they actually did, the area. What they do is that it's a very third world country, and what they do is that they recycle everything.
Okay.
They recycle anything. In fact, what happened? They recycled the cement. So if they tore up any cement, they would just mix it up with other cement and bury it, make it when they do another flat. So anyways, when I'm scanning this platform, if you go on my website, if you click on the light, I got three videos up there on that. But anyways, they mix everything up, and what I was finding was clumps of cement, And so we dug up all the cement, we dug down, and I was in there trying to figure out if we could find any bones or something like that. Because if we found bones, then we'd have to continue digging it, and then we'd use a sifter to try to sift out all the bones and stuff like that. That we're dealing with it. But basically, we never found anything in reference to that. Now, that was Expedition 4. And they just had Expedition 5. They just come back for Expedition 5. But they brought over 2 cadaver dogs this time. And I was supposed to go, but I wasn't. I come back. I was on a job in Florida. I come back from Florida. I got sick.
Okay.
So I was sick for like 10 days. I couldn't go. But anyways, they went back over, and they had investigators and stuff like that. Now, one of the cool things about who was on the team, there's a gentleman by the name of Steve Murphy. Okay, if you watch Netflix and you watch the TV series DEA Narcos.
Okay.
That's all about Steve and his partner. And Steve was the lead investigator on this project. He was in charge with talking to the natives and talking to everybody else, and he was in there. And so his claim to fame is that they were the 2 DEA agents that took down Pablo Escobar. See, so that was the two. Now this guy Steve, I mean, I do a lot of traveling, but he travels all over the world talking about his whole experience. Dealing with Pablo Escobar and the whole 9 yards. So he's a very interesting guy. But that was kind of like that was kind of like the strong or the best job I've actually ever been on.
Wow.
Dealing with that because it was historical. It was fascinating, out in the jungle, sweating, visiting these Japanese bunkers. And the part that really got me was that I put myself, being in the military, I was in the military 10 years, but put myself in perspective in World War II of the Marines. These hills were like this here, almost 30 angles like this here. Trying to fight up, trying to get up on
Right.
through the jungle and take out those enemy bunkers.
Right.
And it was absolutely, you could. I went in some of the bunkers. Some of them are completely closed off, but there's still cannons there and equipment left around that they evacuated the place. Not only that, but we had the opportunity to look at some tunnels because they had spider holes going throughout all the mountains, going down into the place, into the ground, going from one hole to another location, and
Wow.
it was absolutely it was phenomenal. So it was really good, and that's going to be coming out. I think I think they've been right now. It's Expedition 5. He's got 5 expeditions now, films of 5, and they're trying to find now a company that will that could finance the production of it, so they can get it into Netflix. Like one of the ones I was on, that was produced by Left Right TV Productions out of New York.
Okay.
And they do like the when somebody wants to buy a piece of property down in the Caribbean, they film that type of thing. And gets really. But I'll tell you that Micronesia experience was one of the best I ever had. So,
That's cool. All right, so that's the best. What is the weirdest job you've been on?
okay.
I love that. I love the laugh.
Well, the weirdest job I ever did is that happened to be right up here in Manchester, New Hampshire, and that area I was scanning in the backyard. I was scanning in the woods area, and I'm pushing my cart, and it was kind of locked onto something, and I pushed it, and it popped up out of the ground, and what it was a World War II hand grenade,
Oh,
pineapple hand grenade. True, it's on my website.
Oh my God.
Pineapple hand grenade. And what happens is that there's a little box and there's like L safe on the bottom, and it got caught onto that and pulled it up out of the ground. Well, I didn't know what it was. I picked it up and I'm looking. I said, "Jesus, this is a hand grenade," and the pin was all rusted. So I laid it back down on the ground. We backed away from it, because it could have went up. Backed away from it, and then what happened was I called the local police department. They came down, and then they called the state police, and the bomb squad came in. And I got this all on film too. I'm out there like you guys. I'm out there with my camera. All this stuff. Anyways, they removed the hand grenade. It's funny because this guy was all dressed up in this bomb outfit, and he's carrying a big box on his shoulder, and like something that would explode. It would stay within the box. So he gets out there and he does all that, and he comes back and. That later on, they told me that it was still active.
Oh.
Yeah,
wow.
it was still active. But I found other things too. And come to find out, what happened was that back in the 40s, I think it was 47, there was a mid-air collision between 2 military aircraft right over the city.
Wow.
And this was some of the debris that came down because I found,
Oh.
in addition to that area, when they covered everything over. But in addition to that, I found a clutch plate. I found a steering gear. I found like a Jeep steering wheel there,
Wow.
and so we knew it was military. These are all military items, but there had a collision between the 2 aircraft right there.
Wow.
So this was the debris from it. But that was probably the weirdest job.
Wow. And didn't you do something with like a alleged vampire?
Oh yeah. That was on. I was on Legend Hunter, which is Vampires of New England.
Okay.
And that was what Pat Spade, and episode 5. and episode 5. And what it was is that they were doing a story on vampires, and vampires from all of New England, and down in this happened to be down in Connecticut. And they what happened there was back in the 1730s, I think it was in 1730s. There was a reverend that he had several children, and these children were dying from tuberculosis.
Tuberculosis.
There we go.
Oh,
Yeah.
hey, you know what? I am happy that somebody
I
else has
know,
trouble with
right?
names.
Yeah.
I'm usually the one that messes up names all the
Yeah.
time.
So, anyways, he had some children. They died from tuberculosis. There we go. But anyways, what happened there is that on the day that the members of the family, as well as some of the community, were dying, and they figured it was probably a vampire that was coming out. Well, what they did was they went to her grave, okay, and the gentleman that's doing the research on this found a letter dated the day that they were out in the cemetery, and they removed her body from the ground. They removed her heart, her lungs, and some other items, and then they buried her back in the ground, and they buried those items in a box. Okay, they buried items in the box,
Okay.
and they put the box back in the ground about a foot above her body, and they covered it back up. They figured that would be the end of it. And so I got called. I got called by Pat Spade, and he wants to know if I would. They're doing this program on. They know where the grave was, and they want to know if I could come out and scan the ground to find this particular grave. Well, we found the grave. We got the grave. I scanned the ground, and we started. I found the grave itself. They had a headstone there, so it wasn't hard to find the grave. But I did my techniques to really bring out the scrambled egg part of what I'm looking at in the ground. Okay. And I brought it out, and then we looked at it, and so it turned out this is the grave that they were looking for. So they did a whole thing about it, a whole film about it and stuff like that. But the interesting part about this particular film is that what I have learned from a lot of these movie companies is that they're more interested in the sizzle than the steak. Okay,
Yep.
they're more interested in the sizzle than the steak. So they decided, well, we're gonna dress this thing up a little bit, right? So I'm going across the ground, I'm scanning, and he's behind me. He's looking. He's like, "Hey, stop!" And he goes, "What's that?" And he goes, "Yeah, that looks exactly what it is. I can see that plain as day, right? Like this here." And I'm looking at him. I said, "What does he see that I don't see?" Yeah, what does he see that I don't see? And so, anyways, that was kind of a funny experience and dealing with that.
They
But
do. I did watch that segment.
oh, you did, yeah.
It is funny because when you do watch it, and I posted. I think I posted. Let me do it again. I posted the link to your website, but now I'm going to post the link to your media, the media page on your website. But I watched it, and yeah, as they show the screen, it goes from this tiny little like scrambled egg anomaly, and then they morph it with CGI
Exactly,
into
yeah.
a box.
Yeah, no blocks.
Wait, what?
And did you remember seeing the 3-dimensional casket?
Right.
There's no
Right.
casket there, but 3-dimensional casket.
Yeah.
They were rotating the casket. So I mean, they take liberties and stuff like that. But
Right.
every one of these movie producers are always trying to get me to say, yes, that is a grave without digging it up. So
Right.
they all try to trip me on doing that. So
Does that kind of annoy you?
it does, yeah. It
Okay.
really annoys me because I tell them right to begin with. I said, listen, I've been doing this over 20 years, and GPR is not the end all to finding these graves. You have to have other elements to actually tell it's a grave. You got to dig it up. Look what's going on in the United States with these Catholic schools, boarding schools, and in Canada. All these kids that were Indian children that were put into these boarding schools trying to teach them English, and a lot of them died. And they buried, they buried them in unmarked graves outside. Canada, big thing about this right now. But the thing, they asked me to consult on it, to be a consultant on this particular thing. But I keep telling them, I said, they found in one area, one cemetery, they found 250 graves. I says, okay, now these are professors in college saying this. And I
Right.
said, okay, you found 250 graves. Did you dig any of them up? No. Well, how do you know it's a grave?
Right.
How do you know it's a grave? You didn't dig it up. You know,
And that's bad science.
Exactly. And and right now, they were. I mean, the government in Canada was all over this. They were funding it, millions of dollars and stuff like this, but nobody bothered to dig them up. And that's the result of the companies, the GPR companies that was doing the scanning.
Right.
Yeah, that's the result because they didn't know what they were looking at. I mean, a lot of these companies, they're very good in doing rebar and construction sites, looking for wells and looking for like tanks and stuff like that in the ground and that sort of thing. But they don't know what a grave looks like. Actually what a grave does. Well, but so that's what kind of gets me when I hear people talking about that, and they say, "Well, we found this, we found that. That's good. And there are GPR companies out there that specialize in locating graves. Now they do because half of them I trained, but but a few of them they're just going off on their own, glory path, I should say. And I disagree with all that. I've had more arguments with people about it. And the other one is these people with the dowsing rods.
Oh,
Oh,
talk to me, brother.
Yeah, I run into them all the time, and I tell them, I say, why don't you come out? I'm doing a job here. Come out to the job site, and we'll test it. I said, you go out and you find your graves and stuff like this here, right? Flag them. I'll give you the flags, and then I'll scan over them. And then I'll show you what graves look like.
Okay.
And I, number one, nobody's ever come out to challenge me on it. And and oddly enough, I even bought some of those just to try for myself. But I haven't used them yet because it's like I don't want to embarrass myself. So
Right. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. I so want to get somebody to take that challenge up. I would come out there and just film that whole thing. If anyone wants to take that challenge up, I'll come out, we'll film it.
Dowsing challenge.
They can do the dowsing thing. If they think they can douse, I'll film it. And then I would love to see you go over and verify whether something's there or not. Probably not. And that would be so much fun.
Well, the thing about that too, now they get to a point where they're telling people that, like this one guy that I have that lives in Georgia. I'm not going to mention his name, but I trained him, but he's went off in his own different direction. Now he's doing one of these things where he's telling people, you got a grave, you got a baby buried here, you got a woman buried over here, no headstone, no nothing. And that's what these dowsers do. Okay, that person is facing this way or whatever it may be,
Right.
and it just falls. They're just troking their own horn, I guess, or something.
Right.
Just
Right.
looking for the publicity.
Yeah, because I mean, there's no. I mean, you might be able to tell a shorter potential grave, but telling the difference between a male and female, like
No,
no.
you can't tell. You can't tell. I mean, I did a job up in Vermont. What happened was that back in the Civil War, Revolutionary War, no, Civil War. I take that back, Civil War. There was a black gentleman that left Alabama, Mississippi, left Mississippi, joined the Union Army, and he fought, and he died. He was buried in Vermont. Well, the family wanted his remains brought back. So what they did was that they contacted me, wanted to know if I could go to the location. Now he'd go to the location. He was buried. He wasn't buried in a coffin or anything. He was just buried in the ground. Go to his location where they think he's buried, and then exhume the body. So we did that. We went out to that location, and I found remnants of a grave. Remnants of what's grave. Dug it up, and yes, it was his grave. And we had to use sifters to collect the bones.
Right.
Wow.
The whole body was collecting on the bones, and then we shipped. Then they brought the bones back to Mississippi, down there. So that was an interesting situation where now all we had was bones, but I had a lead to go by.
Right.
Had a lead to go by.
Yeah, that's good. All right, we're almost at break, but I got to ask. There's two questions I really want to ask. movie sets. You've
Yeah.
mentioned that you've done what's one movie that you've worked on that everybody would know, and what did you do?
The one movie that I worked on, probably probably the Return to Roanoke: Search for the Seven.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. Okay, Roanoke.
Return to Roanoke: Search for the Seven,
Okay.
and that was up on the History Channel. That went on the History Channel, and it was produced by Left Right TV Productions.
Okay.
And initially, what happened was that back in Roanoke, there was the Dare Stone that they found, and
Right.
the whole everything. Yeah, it was a stone that they found out later on, but Roanoke was written on a tree. That sort of thing. So what that boils down to? There was 115 Englishmen and family came from England to settle on the New World, which was Roanoke. And after about 4 years, after a short period of time, the leader of the group had. I'm thinking back now. Okay, so
Right.
the leader of the group had to go back to England, and when he went back there to replenish supplies and stuff like that, but he went back there, the ship was commandeered because of the fact that the war between England and France was going on. He didn't get back to Roanoke until 4 years later, and the colony disappeared. It was completely vanished.
Oh, wow.
Right.
They carved CO something in the tree, and that was the only thing. So now this gives up a whole bunch of different meanings as to what happened to the colonists, the original colony. Now this is 20 years before Jamestown. Okay, 20 years before Jamestown. So they're bringing up all these things about what happened to them. Well, the episode that we were in, they decided that they went inland. And so we went inland, a place called Boston, North Carolina, or one of those places like that. And what we were looking for, they had the stone that came from a mine that was in the location. Now, when you think of a mine, you think of something on the side of a hill. Okay, and anyway, make a long story short, I was out. We arrived there. We're out there, and the film crew finally showed up. But prior to that day, out there in the woods, we had to wear snake boots, by the way, because the snakes all over the place there. So, anyway, they were down by the river sifting, looking for artifacts for civilization from back in that time period. And I'm walking up through the woods looking for potential spots that might be graves and stuff like that. And I come across this big hole in the ground, and I looked over, and there's like 2 more holes in the ground. Well, these were the copper mines that they were looking for.
Oh, wow.
And so I radioed down to them. I told them, I said, listen, I got these bunch of the holes. I said, I don't know what they are, a bunch of holes here in the ground. Anyways, they shot up, and these were the mines that they were looking for. Now, I always thought mines were on the side of a hill. Okay?
Right.
Right.
But they weren't on the side of a hill. These were in the ground. And they were probably 30 feet in diameter, maybe 25 feet deep. And, that's basically what it was. So anyways, I'm out scanning it, and they film me scanning and everything else, doing all the other things. And so when you actually watch this movie, right, I made the cutting room floor. So, but what they did was, it's kind of funny because we had the team itself, we had to be filmed 4 or 5 times marching through the woods, going to the location. Then we had to stop and make sure we're in the same order, film it again.
Right.
Do it like this here, right? And the 2 brothers, they're Masons, and they were the stars of the show. They're high-fiving each other. Hey, we found the location, we found this, we found that sort of thing. But it turned out to be that the lead archaeologist on the project, he was the one that talked to the camera and talked to the people and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And then it comes down, you can see me in the background. I'm in the background, standing there, about 3 or 4 or 5 shots. I'm in the background, and that's all I did. Even though I spent 2 days there in that godforsaken wooded area with mosquitoes, and I got my mosquito net on and everything else. And
Wow.
That was Pat's Bay was on that was on the Travel Channel.
Okay.
That was on the Travel Channel. You can look that up on the Travel Channel, and there's a few other ones in there too that I've been involved with. But
all right, we are up at the break, so we're going to take our pee break so everyone can rush to the bathroom. And
that's what I told my wife. I said, I hope they're going to have a pee break.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. 2 hours is too long to go. And then when we come back, I'm going to ask you about your personal experience. The one you mentioned, your personal ghostly experience.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah. and then we'll get into the viewer questions because we have a whole bunch.
Yeah.
There's a lot of questions. People are excited. They have some good questions in here. So with that said, we are going to go on our break, and we'll be back in 4 minutes and 9 seconds from now.
And now for something completely different.
Welcome my fellow skeptics, welcome one and all. I am the chief investigator. Oh, come along, old chap. We will have a ball. Now if you will excuse me, it's time to open the mic. Good night. Good night. Kenny Biddle for name investigating's my game, and I will have at it. Quid pro quo. As the head of this committee, hunting for ghosts can be shitty, but there is nothing better that I know. I am a skeptic through and through. I question everything, don't you? Let's open the bar and have some questions, alright. Maybe you might find an answer or two. I will find the truth this night and day, and if my name is not Kenny Biddle, then I assure you here I will not stay. Good day! Kenny Biddle's the name, ghost hunting's the game. I won't let anything get in my way. Too many fakers out there, too many chefs, too many toe tappers, none of it makes any sense. I am a skeptic through and through. I question everything, don't you? Let's open the bar and ask some questions, alright. Maybe you might find an answer or two. Who knows? There may be ghosts in the machine, but trust me, I am not so keen. I prefer to see these things clearly, not in 144p. I am a skeptic through and through. I question everything, don't you? If you don't think I am right, let's open my night. Yeah, yeah. I am a skeptic through and through. I question everything, don't you? If you don't think I am right, let's open my night. Yeah. If you have an answer or two, let Kenny Biddle solve it for you. Let Kenny Biddle solve it for you. The one and only Kenny Biddle. Kenny Biddle. Kenny Biddle. Kenny
Oh, look, he's got a big thermos.
Actually, I got these. On my other ones, I have my company name on it.
Oh, that's
Nice.
cool.
Yeah. Do you want to hear how I actually come across my logo?
Sure.
See my logo there?
I'm looking at it. I'm gonna have to go on the site and get one because I like it. I like it a lot.
You just go to my website. And also too, that's my book.
Yes.
That's
All
on my
about-
website too. So, but anyways, how I got the logo was basically is that I basically just had the logo saying Bone Finder. Okay, I'm gonna get a little risque here. Okay, so
Oh yeah,
okay,
about time, Bob.
it says Bone Finder with a skull and crossbone tracking the dead. Well, I had to add that tracking the dead for a reason because a friend of mine, this lady friend of mine, I'm married now. Okay, is mine, right? And she has like kind of a very unique mind. And she says to me, but she says, "Oh, Bob," she says, "you ought to take that logo, put it on T-shirts, and sell it in bars because the women would go nuts over that." Okay, and I said, "Wait a minute, let me think about something." I said, "What are guys thinking when I'm walking around saying Bone Finder?" Okay. So, anyways, what I did was that I do a lot. I'm a treasure hunter. I do a lot of metal detecting, and I have a book out called Tracking Treasure. I'm not me. I have a book called Tracking Treasure.
Okay.
And so I changed the treasure to tracking the dead. So that's how I came up with the logo.
Nice.
Nice.
All right. Tell us about your personal ghost story.
Okay, yeah.
We go
I
on
was
to questions.
I was doing a job down in Sparta, Georgia, and it was an old Baptist church that was torn down, and you could see anybody coming down this road because it's way out in the woods. And it's just a dirt road for almost a mile is nothing but dirt. So if you see anybody coming down the road, you're going to see dirt flying up behind the car coming down the road.
Right.
So I met with my client the first day, and he told me, the job was, and we had the cemetery that was right there, and they needed to scan and find the graves and maybe possibility disinter everybody because they're going to sell the property. But right next to it, right next to the cemetery, there was an old outhouse, and the outhouse was kind of leaning like a little bit like this here, something out like in a cartoon. It was looked to me looking like a cartoon. Okay, so I'm there and I'm doing my job on the third day. It happened to be Halloween, by the way. It was Halloween,
Nice.
and it was on the third day, and I was usually when I'm out in the field and I'm working, I end up leaving all my equipment all over the place. And so it just got dark, and I'm out there with my flashlight trying to get my equipment back. And I'm looking in one particular direction. I was just about starting to get, it was dark, but it was still a little light. You can see it in the sky.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm over by this outhouse, and there's a log over here to my right side, and the outhouse on the left. And out of the left side of my eye, peripheral vision, I see this image walk into the outhouse. Full body image, walk into the outhouse, and my hair, arms, and I panicked. What I did, and I turned this way, and I started running to my truck. Well, the log was there, and I face planted the dirt over the log,
Oh.
and if you see me kicking, trying to get up and hit my truck, I jumped in the truck. I turned my lights on. Nothing was there. It was gone.
Okay.
And that's God honest truth. That's what happened. So ever since then, I kept thinking to myself, wait a minute, maybe it was cloud, maybe from the opening of the sunlight. I was trying to come up with all these reasons what that could happen, how that could happen. But out of I could see this thing walk right by me into the outhouse. Now on the video, if you, I did one. They did a video. They did a. Up in October Mountain, western part of Massachusetts, October Mountain. They did a video up there on me for Anna Pease. She was a ghost that haunted the cemetery up in that area. See, so that was up. That was up in that part of the world. But after seeing this thing, I wasn't too confident, and I wasn't. I questioned myself in reference to doing that. So that's my ghost story.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. All right. So we have a lot of questions,
Okay.
and I'm going to tell everyone that's watching, I apologize in advance if we do not get to them all because there are a lot, and some of them look. I was glancing. I've been so interested in your stories that I have not been paying attention to the chat too much.
Well, if anybody has any questions, they could just email me too.
Okay, cool.
Email me with a question. BobPerry@topographics.com. They could email me.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll put that up on the Yeah, we'll get through the questions and I'll put that up there
Okay.
so that people can see it. So, all right, what do we got? Aaron says, where can someone go to learn more about GPR and build your skill set with it without buying a GPR unit?
Well, first of all, you can rent GPR units.
Oh,
So that's one of the things you can do. Well, the best thing really to do if you just wanted to learn the equipment itself, you can go to the company that I do the work for, that sometimes they're 2 miles, 2 towns over from me. They have a 2-day course, and it's on ground penetrating radar. And a lot of people that buy the equipment will, they take this 2-day course, but you don't have to buy the equipment. You can take the 2-day course. And then a lot of times what they do is that when that course is all done, they'll come over to me and I'll spend a half a day with them or something like that out in a cemetery showing them everything to do. Now, the other side to that, to kind of promote my own book, everything the person wants to know to be in this business they wanted to is right in this book.
Right.
And the other thing too, if you go on my website and you click on, it says order my book, you click that on, there's a video on there that details the book itself and what it's for and how it's worked. And
Right.
it's not cheap, but they can order the book through my website. But that's how you would basically develop skills. And then maybe hooking up with somebody that has GPR equipment and going to learn. Now, there's more to GPR equipment than just scanning for graves. A lot of money can be made doing rebar and construction sites and all kinds of other good things. It's a very good career.
Cool.
It sounds
All right.
like it would be a very interesting career.
I would love to find treasure.
I've been on treasure hunts too.
That's awesome. Blast writes, are there any drastic differences for locating older graves versus newer ones? Are there
Oh,
any?
sure, yeah. Main difference is because the older graves are almost completely gone. They're collapsed down to nothing, like just a couple of inches. A modern grave, even if it's just a green burial. If it's just a green burial, the body's going to be very recognizable when you see the scanning. And it's the big difference itself is that older graves are pretty much collapsed if they're in a wooden box. Now we're talking back in the 1800s, maybe late 17. My specialty is the 1700, 1800 time period, and especially here in New England, we got all kinds of them up here. But
Okay. Now, is there? I'm assuming like most modern graves, at least that I know of, go into a vault already, right?
Yeah.
So that probably would help. And when you say a green burial, what is that?
Well, basically, they don't do anything to the body. They just take the body and they put it in wrap it in a shroud or maybe a cardboard box that's shaped like a grave, and they put them in the ground and it deteriorates naturally.
Okay.
And a lot of times they don't even put markers there. They don't want people to know. They have a designated area that's a green burial. And sometimes what they'll do is that they'll put a little marker in the grave itself, and the marker has a GPS coordinates. That's where that thing is located.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
We can get a marker, put it into a bottle of Kraken rum, and then we'll put the Kraken rum in like resin so it's protected, and then you can just dig a hole and dump my body in it somewhere and put the rum on the pedestal. That way everyone can visit me and I'm a natural grave. There you go.
Yeah, so that's kind of like that's a good. They put these little tokens or emblems, what do you want to call it, and the GPS. That's the latest. I get money. I get a couple of companies from England that were trying to get me involved in that. But no, that's not my expertise.
That sounds awesome, though. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm going with that idea. All right. What else we got?
Wait, so now you want a grave? I
Just-
wasn't even going to do that.
I'll even dig the hole. I'll have it ready for you. I'll just do it in the backyard. That way you just roll me out.
Nice.
All right. Florio's Phantom Files. How much does it cost to privately hire someone to do radar over concrete? I heard a crazy story about a psychic who said she hired someone to prove a body was there where she divined it. Okay. So how much, what's like the price range?
Well, I just tell you what I charge.
Okay.
And that's the bad thing, okay? It depends on the location. It depends on the location. If it's within an hour's drive from my house, I charge $1,850 per
Okay.
day. Per day.
That's for the full day. Okay.
Yeah, and that's for the whole day. And on top of that, other than that, I don't have to fly. But if it's outside a 2-hour drive time, I charge $2,000 a day.
Okay.
And then if it's out of state, because I work all over New England.
Okay.
So if I get jobs up in Connecticut or down in Rhode Island or Virginia, I've been down to Virginia a few times, and at one particular time I was all over the country. I was doing it all over the country, but I kind of, as I'm getting older, I'm trying to keep it situated to New England. That sort of thing. So my average is about my average project on a 1-day job. I'm probably generating a total of about maybe $2,000. Because what I do is that if it's just $1,850, if I just go out and I'm there for half a day, or just a lot of times what happens is that somebody passed away in California, and they want to and they have a family plot up here in New England someplace, like in Rhode Island or Connecticut, whatever it may be, or New York, and they want to be buried in that plot, but they have no idea if there's any opening space there. So they'll pay me, my normal fee, to drive 4 hours to that location, spend 10 minutes on the job site, and drive all the way back.
Right.
Wow.
Okay. And some days it takes me 4 or 5 days. So my biggest job that I ever done was a historic congressional cemetery in Washington, D.C. And that was $112,000
Wow.
total. It's a 35-acre cemetery.
Yeah.
And I spent 2 years in that project. Spring, summer, and fall. I was down there for 1 week every month.
Wow.
And but it turned out, and that's on my website too. I have that. If you click on the maps, you'll see one of them there. So
Okay. This is fascinating. I love this. All right. Cool. Blast writes, are there any new updates or new technologies that you're excited to see or that you'd like to see?
well, I just recently upgraded my GPR equipment.
Okay.
And the reason why I upgraded it, because the other GPR equipment that I had was what they refer to as the SIR 3000, which is a very good unit. It's most of the archaeologists today that train on doing that. I think that's one of the best units that they ever had, that they have. However, the latest unit that they have, I could do 3-dimensional imaging with it on the fly. Before, I used to have to collect the data and bring the data back to the office, and then process the data using the software that comes with the training that you do when you buy the equipment. But in this case here, I can do 3-dimensional imaging on the fly, which is great, because as I'm out there scanning, if I'm being filmed scanning, I can bring the client right over, and they can take a look at it 3-dimensionally, and I can flip the thing upside down, rotate. That piece I just showed you before we. Can I take the camera and do it really quick?
Yeah, if you want to.
Okay, this is one of the things I was talking about. Okay, that's what you see on the other side over here. Those are graves, and this is a 3-dimensional imaging. I'm subdividing the scan. Now that scan right there, that is 10 feet deep. It says it was 76 feet long and 50 feet wide.
Wow.
And there was an open area, and I'm finding graves in that open area.
Can you go back to the other
This one?
Yeah, and point out the graves. Yeah.
This is a grave here. Now, notice the anomaly here.
Okay.
See the curve? That's a grave, but that's a vault.
Oh.
See how it flattens out at the top?
Right. Okay.
See? Flattens out. This is a grave. You can see this. You can see see how it goes up and down like that.
Right.
Okay, as the radar is going across the ground like this, it's going into the ground at 24 scans a foot. It's hitting here, come up the top and back down the other side. That's why you see the inversion right here.
Okay.
Here's another grave right here. This one's another grave.
Okay. So that's showing, am I correct here saying that showing the top graves, the top part, like
that's the top part right there. There's another one right there too.
Okay. So these are just in the same area, but just different depths.
Just side by side.
Okay.
Just side by side. Yep.
Wow. Okay. Cool.
And here, if this was a computer screen, this is the length across the ground.
Okay.
As I'm scanning, I'm walking like this. That's why you see 10, 20 feet. You know,
Okay.
you get to the end, you go back, and this is the depth. Oh, this is the depth right here.
Okay.
So you see, like this grave here, this one's just about a foot under the ground. The vaults typically are no less, pretty much about a foot under the ground. You can
Okay.
probe it real easy if you hit the vault. That's probably, that could be a vault there too. But see the anomaly on the top?
Right.
See,
Yeah.
and this is right here. So
Okay. Oh, cool. I love it.
Very, very
That's
interesting
awesome.
stuff.
All right.
I was actually going to have on. I just thought about it after I sat down when we first started talking. I was going to actually put one up on my unit and tilt it this way so that people could see what it looks like.
Okay.
Mhm.
Oh, that's cool. Thank
But
you.
anyways, this equipment runs anywhere between this equipment, if you wanted to buy the equipment, the equipment basically runs between 22,000 and up to 25,000. But they manufacture all different types of equipment. One piece of equipment that they have, they can, if there's like a building that collapsed, they can take the unit and put it on top of the rubble, and they actually tell if anybody's breathing down there.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's technology, and they have smaller units too that you would use, like for example, they use this type of equipment like in the pyramids when they want to scan inside, they want to see what's on the inside of a wall.
Right.
You know, they use handheld units for scanning.
Okay. Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. That's so cool. All right, what else we got? Cat Mac, what's up, girl? Have you done any surveying at residential schools?
You talk about looking for graves, I wonder. I've done residential schools, but most of the time it's just looking for like irrigation lines, you
Okay.
know, for thing. But to answer your question, no, let me take that back. I had to. I was out in Buffalo, New York. Buffalo, is it, or Albany, New York?
Okay.
And the job was they have a building there, a monastery that had the nuns and the priests there, and it was a big area, and they were repurposing the building. So and then they had 45 nuns buried in the back and 3 priests. So we had to disinter all of them to move the bodies out to another location. So my job basically was to find these bodies, and so they could disinter them. We found every one of them, and they moved them to another location. And that was kind of an interesting little thing. It was 65, I think, all total that we disinterred from there. So
wow, that's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
All right, Audra, hello. Have you done any work in the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area?
Oh yeah, I've done half a dozen jobs down there. Again, if they go on my website and they click on client, and I think I have posted about over 100 clients up there. I think Pennsylvania's in there too.
Oh yeah, look at that. I see New Hampshire, New York.
It scrolled all the way down.
Massachusetts, Georgia, U.S. Oh yeah. I see U.S. South and West. I don't see any Pennsylvania.
But I've done 3 or 4 jobs in Pennsylvania, and
Okay.
that's only 100. That's only about 100 of my customers. I get close to 350 clients across the country.
Okay. Where I'm going to jump in. I'm going to butt into the question list here. Where are the hats?
My hats?
Your bone finder hats. Where are they? I don't see them on the site.
If they want to order a hat, which you can see right here, I got a bunch of them, so they can order. If anybody wants to add, I charge $25. You can do through PayPal if you want.
Okay.
Right through PayPal, and $27 for the hat. I can get you the hat, and
Okay.
I get a black one. And just email me or go through go through PayPal and you can get it. Or email me and I can take care of it for you.
All right. I didn't know if it was online, like merch and
The
stuff.
email, he has his online.
Yeah, I have that. I was just like, as you were answering questions, I was like looking, like, where's this hat at? I can't find the hat.
Yeah, no, I haven't. I kind of have. I don't put any advertising on my truck either. Because I carry $60,000 worth of equipment. In my van, and I take it if I go into a hotel that comes out of the van, it goes into my office, it goes into my room. not just for this equipment, but I also have, robotic mapping equipment, which is another $25,000 to own something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a lot.
That's an expensive full
yeah.
But
vehicle.
when I first started my job, I bought the equipment. I had it paid off in 2 months.
Oh,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's nice. All right. What else we got? Marie Jane, what's up? Has Bob worked with Josh Gates?
No, I was going to on that DB their project on the DB Cooper story.
yeah,
Right.
we saw that, right?
Yeah, and I was supposed to go out to them, but COVID hit.
Right.
And so when you see that episode, they went with metal detectors.
Okay. Yeah.
They're out there with metal detectors. Yeah.
Oh, that's a shame.
So, actually, I was in Nevada on a job, on a homicide job, and then I got called. I was in the car. Then I got called by his staff to want to know if I could come out and do I'm in California now, and this is going to be in Washington State. I could just go up to there, but
Right.
but they had to schedule it, and then COVID hit, so we never got to do it. So
Oh well.
Yeah, it stinks.
Oh well. All right. What else we got? Aaron. Hey Bob. I use drones and satellite remote imaging along with GIS in my work. Is there a good intro model you would recommend that doesn't cost an arm and a leg? It would be used for archaeology.
so I guess they're talking about ground penetrating radar.
I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of other companies out there that sell the equipment. Some of them you can get for like 10,000, maybe 15,000, 8,000. You can also look around online. The unit that I had prior to this one, I sold it for $7,000. So there are used units out there, and I'm telling you, these units last for a long, long time. So that the gentleman that's down in Georgia right now, he's the one that bought my first unit, and he's still running it, and the thing's over close to 18 years old.
Wow. That's pretty.
And they hold their value too. They hold their value, their resale value. So,
That's
but
pretty.
you got Sensorsoft up in Canada that has a pretty nice one. They're trying to promote this very small, inexpensive one for the police departments and stuff like that. So it's
Okay.
yeah. They just have to go online and look up online ground penetrating radar equipment, and you're gonna see page after page after page of companies now that are actually marketing, manufacturing and marketing it.
Right. Okay. Cool. Last rights. Is there any place in the world you'd love to scan if you had the chance?
Let's see. Vietnam.
Vietnam.
Oh,
Vietnam.
very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I was supposed to go back to Vietnam. In fact, we were just communicating. I was just communicating with the gentleman for about 2 years, and we're not able to get authorization to bring my own equipment over there to scan. What happened is that he was this gentleman that I taught. This gentleman, he was at the age of 16 years of age. He was a interpreter, Vietnamese interpreter, and he worked with special forces over there. And he was involved in four battles. He lost his leg and he lost his arm.
Oh,
And so now what he's doing is that there are a bunch of mass burial sites of NVA and VC and ARVNs, South Vietnamese, North Vietnamese, and VC that are buried in part of these battles that are buried in mass burial sites, mass graves.
Okay.
And so he's putting together a team. He has a couple of doctors and professors at university there that are coming here to the United States to be trained on GPR. That I'm going to spend 2 days with them on teaching them on bodies, how to scan for graves and stuff like that.
wow.
But they want me to go over there too. So I haven't decided if I really want to go, because I would love to go, just to reminisce about the fact that I was there, But
Right.
there's a lot of unexploded ordnance there.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be out in the field, and I don't want to get my leg blown off. So.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
that's the scary
Yeah.
part. Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally.
I like to go there to tour it. I mean, I was close to Saigon. I was, I was in a place I was in Anke, Pleiku, and Quinh Nhan. Those are the three locations that I was at over there.
Okay.
Thank you for your service,
Yeah.
Bob.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. What else we got? How does GPR differ from LiDAR?
Oh, yeah.
Sort
Well,
of
GPR basically measures what's going into the ground, dirt that's in the ground. It scans into the ground. LiDAR is something that flies in the air, and it will remove a lot of the vegetation from the top, and you can actually see like where foundations were and houses because of the disturbance in the soil. What I do in GPR is that a lot of times I'm hired to go find these foundations that have been buried over, or find wells. I had a job one time to go down to the Alamo, and they wanted me to get down in the Alamo, but I just couldn't do it. I didn't believe the guy was talking. Anyways, about 100 feet or 100 yards out from the Alamo, there's so-called a tunnel, and they buried all kinds of loot in the tunnel. Okay, it's a typical job, right? It's a typical one. And it's a well. They built thousands of dollars in silver in this well. So he got permission to excavate the well, but I never saw the second chapter of the movie, so I don't know.
Wow.
But I did go on a treasure hunt. And down in Georgia, Cummings, Georgia.
Okay.
And there was a gentleman that he was an original 49er, and he came back to the States. He had about $3,000 in gold dust, and he turned them into double eagle Dugan coins. So the guy that's in charge, that was the head of this expedition, he wanted me to come down there. So I went all the way down there, and we found his location. It was a house that he had, and he so-called has buried it within earshot of his house. And so anyways, we brought in some heavy equipment, cleared out everything around the area, and he so-called put all the coins in a vase, or whatever you want to call it, and buried it in the ground.
Okay.
So we did that. We took a bunch of lead and stuff like that, and put it in a vase, buried it in the ground. Well, that vase looked like 1,000 other rocks. That was in the ground. So we spent 2 weeks there. I did find it. We thought we did find it because there was back then what we used to do is that they call a deadfall, and what it is that the Indians come up with a thing where they would dig a hole. They keep all their supplies down there and the valuables in this hole. The hole is typically maybe 4 or 5 feet in diameter on the top, and it kind of tapers down and it goes out in this way here. And what they do, they put a log in there. If they have any valuables, if anybody tries to get in there, it makes the log fall. Because that's why they call it a deadfall. Deadfall. And there was two tunnels going into this location. But we took a camera and we dropped the camera down into the hole. We saw all this silver type stuff on the walls. I said, "Oh man, we found it. We found this treasure, right?" It turned out to be what do they call it? Mica.
Oh yeah.
Fool's gold.
Fool's gold. Yeah. Pyrite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I did find out was that somebody beat us there back in the 70s, because as we were excavating this area, there was a big tree right beside it. And what happened was, how we found it was there's a tree that fell over. What they did was they dug the hole. They planted a tree on top of it, but the tree got so big that it had no roots below it, and it fell over, and it exposed the hole. You'll say it exposed the hole. So, anyways, I'm looking at this tree. I'm looking inside this knot, and there's a Coke bottle, all overgrown. It was a Coke bottle from the 70s. All overgrown inside the thing. So I'm pretty sure that they were there. They found the treasure before us. So.
Wow. So I got to ask, do you get a cut of the treasure if you find it?
Well, it was going to be a 50-50 split.
Oh, nice.
Sweet.
50-50. But then we had to bring an excavator in there, a guy who knew what he was doing with the brush thing and stuff like that. So he was going to get a third. Then it became a third split. Okay. And then I had another guy, a buddy of mine, came in with his GPR equipment. So we're going to break it into quarters. I mean, one half was going to go to the original guy, and the other half was going to be broken into quarters.
Oh, okay. All right. I see.
So it got diluted pretty fast.
Thank you, Puerto Rican, for becoming a member. And I also want to jump back and just say thank you, Sky Talker. She gifted a membership early on. So awesome. Very awesome. Thank you so much for that. All right. What else we got? R&B. Who are using Bob's services the most?
Cemeteries.
Cemeteries, yeah.
Cemeteries. Every once in a while, I get a nice job. I get a cool job, interesting job, like for police departments. I've been on, my most recent one was a Jennifer Doolin murder case down in Connecticut. And I was on that. And what happened was that Mr. Doolin was having an affair. and he ended up murdering his wife,
Oh.
and they never found her body. Even today, they never found her body. And it was told that he might have disinterred her. I'm not just he might have cut her up, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And so I was contacted by the Connecticut State Police, and they asked me if I could, get in on the job. So I said, sure, I'll come down and take a look at it, see what I can find. So anyways, I found 4 areas in the backyard, a big open area in the backyard, all full of grass and stuff like that. But then behind that was a hill and wooded area. Now, why would anybody want to bury in the dirt, in the grassy area and not up in the woods? I never figured that out. But anyways, it was told by a gentleman that came over there to give a price on a pool, to have a pool installed. And he picked the spot out where the best part for the pool, but he wouldn't have a pool put there. He wanted the pool in another location.
Okay.
He wanted the pool in another location. Anyways, make a long story short, I found 4 locations. The 4 locations had disturbed soil, but there was no anomalies in the disturbed soil.
Okay.
So after excavation, I was proven right. They brought in a backhoe and they excavated all these sites, and there was nothing in there.
Okay.
So then I turned my attention to the house. Now in the house, they had a stairway going down into the 3-level stairway going down into the garage, and below the stair was all blocked off and nice wood and stuff like that.
Okay.
But looking from the stairway, I noticed that there was probably about 6 inches of new cement. And I said, geez, I wonder if this is it. Anyway, we pulled down everything, and I'm scanning in there, and I'm getting this anomaly. But come to find out, they had some plumbing work done, and it turned out this was the plumbing thing involved in it.
Okay.
Wow.
But the funniest part about that story is that if you look up Bob Perry, Connecticut State Police, you'll see all kinds of stuff there about the Jennifer Doyle. It went viral, by the way. They even made a movie. They made a movie on it too, a Jennifer Doyle murder case. But the interesting part about it was that there was, when I pulled up to the house, there was probably about 9 news crews on the outside, all filming. So I was being filmed as I pulled up, got out, got my equipment out of my truck, and I had this back in the mask. I had to wear the mask. Right. And so anyways, I was up there and with the job, and I happened to say to the state police guy after I did all the scanning, and they were still looking in the house. I said, okay, I'm taking a break. I'm going to take a ride down to Dunkin' Donuts. Now, do you ever see these on the side of the roadway? These these big cones, that they try on like a football. I mean, in the football stadiums, the big cones are trying to hear what the people are saying on the field.
Yeah.
Well, they had one of those out there, and I happened to say to the cop, I says, I'm going to take a ride down to Dunkin' Donuts down the street here. I'm going to grab a coffee. Do you want anything while I'm down there? Oh, no, that's okay. Well, as I'm walking down the roadway to get at the driveway, I see the news truck take off. Right? I see the news truck take off. So I said, okay, well, they're all done leaving. So I get down to Dunkin' Donuts, and what do you know? The news truck is there. And they ambushed me for an interview.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's on my website too. But if you do a search on Google, if you just put in Bob Perry Bone Finder, you'll see all kinds of stuff down there. Then if you add Connecticut State Police, you'll see one of probably 30 different interviews that they did. They went viral. I was interviewed constantly. In fact, I'm still getting calls today if I any new information about the case.
Wow.
Wow, that's awesome. All right, we're making a little dent, but so many people have questions. Luis Pari, have you scanned anywhere in the UK?
No, I haven't. No. I did do a job but not in Canada. But I mean, not in England, the UK, and it was for Icon Films. If you look that up, Icon Films, and they have a lot of TV programs out there. And I did a job for them, and I did a job for them on what was it? Oh yeah, on a job was it for Pat Spade Legend Hunter. They were the ones that they did all the editing and stuff like that. But they wanted to work with me on a program. I was contacted by Fox Alternative Entertainment, and to do a reality TV series called The Bone Finder. And so I signed a contract with them for a year-long contract, and they were going to pack. They were like real estate brokers, and I was like a piece of real estate. And what they were going to do is package me up to sell me to networks.
Right.
You see, that's what they were going to do. I signed what they refer to as a shopping agreement.
Mhm.
Well, I was in this shopping agreement for a year, and they were doing nothing. And I kept asking them. I said, I gave them a number of different projects, ideas for projects, that they could deal with. People that have contacted me, about different things. I gave them a ton of things to do, but they wouldn't do anything. I went through three executive producers, and the second one, the first one left the company. The second one wanted to turn my bone finder into a family thing, a TV with family involved in it.
Okay.
I said, screw off. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing the family. And what I wanted to do, my concept that I presented to them, I wanted to be teamed up with a homicide investigator, an investigative reporter, and myself. And the three of us would bring new evidence to cold cases.
Oh, wow.
And I had both an investigative reporter and a homicide investigator, retired one, and I had two AG officers, that were going to supply me with things here. But they kept screwing around. So I finally, after about almost a year, I pulled the plug on it because I turned down a number of other jobs, in the meantime,
Right.
because I couldn't compete. I was under contract with them. So
Right.
So if anybody's going to get out there, don't sign a contract more than 3 months.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Good advice.
Yeah.
All right. We're getting through. We're running out of time. Hey, John without an H. What's up, buddy? What's the most surprising discovery you've made?
Most surprising. Well, that World War II hand grenade was one of that was probably pretty much it. Well, I did a job in Virginia Beach, Virginia, just last year, and I did. I done in Virginia Beach. I was just thinking of another one, Virginia Beach, Virginia, and there was a battle that took place between the Indians and the revolutionists, and there was a big murder site there was a big battle that took place, and a lot of dead bodies were buried there. But what they end up doing was that they sold the property. It's right on the bank of the one of the rivers that's there, and they on the bank itself they put up a wall, and some of this wall had bodies underneath the wall. And so somebody decided to do it. But the other thing too that I was just thinking about, that we found the bodies, and that was a pretty interesting case because again it was a historical thing.
Okay.
But the one I was just thinking about was in New York. What it was down in the end of 86, 89, going down towards Pennington, New York, I think it was. Anyways, 20 years prior to this, they disinterred in the center of town. They disinterred a bunch of graves, and they brought them up to the side of a hill and buried them in. In the meantime, they collected about 20 headstones and brought the headstones up and just dumped them off up there. So the interesting job to me was I had to find a grave that they could put a headstone on.
Oh, gee.
They didn't care what it was, as long as they could find a grave that had the headstone.
Right.
And the funny part about it is a lot of these, because of the side of the hill, a lot of the graves were washed out.
Oh, wow.
And another one too, another surprising discovery. I did a thing up in Stock, New Hampshire, where the cemetery, an old cemetery, was on the corner. Was on the corner of a river, and they started finding skeletons and skulls and bones in the river. And if you looked on the side, you could see caskets sticking out from the side of the hill.
Oh, so it was just
Yeah.
getting away.
Sticking out from the side of the hill. Yeah. So anyways, they had to disinter. So we found all the graves, and they disinterred them. So I could probably go on, but I think that's probably.
That's good. Obscure reference man. Hello, Tim. Does the GPR differentiate between different rock densities so you can tell a different type of rock can be discerned by your system? For example, a fault on top of a rock formation.
No, you can't. For example, in a lot of these cemeteries, there's areas where they have ledge, and I don't. When it comes to ledge, you need a special type of equipment to actually. You need like my antenna is a 400 megahertz antenna, but it's only one unit. You would need like 4 or 5 a bank of units out there scanning the ground, collecting data in order to measure ledge, that sort of thing. But no, you can't determine different stones or anything. All it is just an anomaly in the ground. And, it could be anything. It could be a rock. I did a mass burial site down in Savannah, Georgia, at the Catholic cemetery down there, and we were scanning, and I found what appeared to be bricks in the ground. I mean, I could see them. I could see the different shapes of the bricks. We dug it up, and somebody in the middle of the night come out there, dug up the hole next to the body, buried a dog there, and then put red bricks around in there, and then buried it all up. So that's basically what I found. So
Okay.
but I found 2 mass burial sites down there from the 1822 yellow fever epidemic.
Okay.
Wow.
So
Wow. Cool.
Very good.
All right. John without an H, is there any kind of protocol when you find human bones?
yeah, there is. If you dig something, first of all, it's illegal to dig something up unless you get a court order. That's the first thing. And for example, you have somebody that says, "I'd like to have my relative dug up and brought down," like the black gentleman that was Revolutionary War. I mean, the Civil War. You have to have a court order, or the police department, can do it. There's certain things that you have to do. For protocol, if you do, like these companies that come across and they find like bones that they're putting in a roadway or something like that, they find these bones, they have to call the local police. The work has to stop, and then they have like an archaeologist or a police department will come in there, and they have, they'll get like an anthropologist that will come in there and take a look at it. But you have to stop your work. That's basically the protocol when you find bones.
Okay.
Unless you're hired, like I do, in a cemetery, and they already have somebody there to disinter the body, or that's why I say you don't know if it's a grave unless you dig it up.
Right. And so if you're hired by like a private homeowner or something like that to come out and look, like you can only tell them there's an anomaly here.
Well, I get a lot of that. I
Okay.
get a lot of that, and the reason why is because in cemeteries, when the headstone gets broken or the headstone is they want to replace the headstone, right? So the family replaced the headstone, they remove the old headstone. Where do you think they put it? In the backyard.
Yeah, I've never. You asked that question, and I'm like dumbfounded. Like I have no freaking clue.
Right.
They put it in the backyard, and all of a sudden, then they sell the house, and somebody comes out there digging in the backyard. They see a headstone. Automatically, you got graves there.
Right.
And that probably happens during the summertime. That probably happens at least 10 or 15 times a year.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's actually kind of funny.
Yeah, that's cool. And you have like I know you have like a stick or something that you use to poke, right?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I probe the ground. Yeah, that's one of the things that I do is that I confirm what I see in the radar screen. I want to confirm it through a probe. So
Okay.
if I see something down there that's say 10 feet, I mean that's 4 feet. I want to probe it and hit it. Now when I hit it, I can tell if it's cement. I can tell if it's wood. I can tell if it's a wooden casket. I can tell because of the feel that I get when I go through it.
Right.
And the other thing too, a lot of times I'm hired to go out and find buried headstones that families have lost in the cemetery, whatever it may be. And I have a technique for finding it. Once I see an anomaly, I can take my probe and I can take my probe and I can, pull it in the ground. I can hit the stone and I put my foot in different locations and I can feel the vibration when it hits the stone. And I can tell from the vibration where the stone is actually buried, how deep it is, and which way it's facing. So then they come in there and I've got I got some good photographs of some of the ones that I found. So if anybody emails me, they can, Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention, I've got more videos up on my YouTube page.
Yes, I did share the link to your YouTube.
Okay, yeah.
So people can go and find that and take a look because it's some good stuff. I've looked through it. The first time I reached out to you, I looked through some of it to know who I was talking to before I reached out to you.
Right.
And then after I talked to you, I was like, this guy is interesting. I want to know more. This is fun. And I spent the rest of the day just going through all your videos. So love it. Absolutely love it. All right, Monica, I don't know if anyone asked this, but didn't you do groundwork for Skinwalker Ranch?
No, I wish I did. I wish I did. No, I didn't do skate. Actually, I was trying to be a consultant on Oak Island up there. Yeah, I was trying to become a consultant on
Yeah.
that, and I made a couple of phone calls, and no phone calls returned because one of the things I thought about, they would find if we could find a grave there. A lot of these graves from these people that are there that were buried there are still there.
Right.
You know, the bodies are still there, and so they're probably buried with artifacts.
Hmm.
And that's one of the big things that they were interested in, artifacts. Everything's artifacts on that program. You know,
Yeah.
that all these artifacts.
Everything. We go back and forth. Donna loves that
I
show.
Oh
have
yeah,
to watch it. I'm
I
hooked.
I find it to be somewhat staged.
yeah,
To me.
yeah. Oh yeah, without a doubt. Yeah. Oh yeah, without a doubt. I think so. I think so. They have to be. Yeah. I mean, you know, look at this guy that narrates it. He goes, they suspect. I mean, I think one show he might, you know, did they find anything? Just his voice itself, it tries to
Right.
tell.
Right.
It's just the voice. I wonder if he found something. Oh no, so and so, you know, the narrator on that program. So
A silver spoon from the Knights Templar?
yeah,
Oh my goodness.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Oh
So,
my
so
God.
I never did anything with Skinwalker Ranch. So
Okay. All right. I think we got a couple more questions we can get to. I don't know if we'll get through all of them, but Mike Walt. Hello, Mike. Mr. Perry, what is your thoughts on the supposed finding of the structures beneath Giza? I don't know if you've heard
talking
about
about the tunnels that they put they buried the people. Not buried, but they're hosting the hostages in.
that. No. There was a recent press release. It wasn't a scientific paper, but there was a recent press release where two people claim that they used satellite-based radar system to find caverns underneath
Oh, sure, yeah.
the pyramids. Yeah.
That's part of the line art type of stuff too as well. And but you know, radar is not very good if it's not flat on the ground. You know, you got to have contact with the ground. Now they are like they do have systems now that with like drones that they're using drones to do it, but they're not. It hasn't really developed that far. As far as I know, that hasn't really developed to a point now that they can actually rely on the information that the data that they're collecting.
Okay.
Most of the LINAR is fantastic. I wish I got involved with LINAR many years ago. You know, when I was doing the ground penetrating radar, because that is something I really would like to get into, especially with down in South America and places like that. So
Right. Okay. Cool. Soda Ricken, is GPR used underwater?
that would be called sonar.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
That would be called sonar.
That's good.
It's the same thing, but it's sonar. It's under the water.
Right.
And sometimes it drives me nuts because they're talking about. I see in a newspaper article they'll go, "Well, we use sonar and we scanned the ground. We found this information." No, you didn't use sonar. I'll always write them. Say it's not sonar. It's GPR, ground penetrating radar.
Wow. Okay. Oh, that's good. Wayne Dawson, you probably mentioned this, but it takes my little brain time to process things. How can you distinguish between different materials such as rock, metals, bones, etc.?
You really can. It's just, first of all, it takes experience and disinterment and digging to be able to actually understand what it is that you're looking at. Somebody just you get the equipment, you know, they're gonna see an anomaly, and to them it's going to be a grave, you know, because that's all they know, that they see me or whatever it may be. But you really can't determine. You really can't tell the difference in material. Unless you probe it, and that's how I define it. You know, like I used to have a little cone on the end of my probe, and sometimes when I hit it like a tree root or something like that, I can pull it up and I can look, it's clean. Or if I hit a wooden casket, boom, and it goes through. And sometimes I'm probing down and it goes through one, and then it goes through whatever it may be and hits the bottom of it. So
Okay.
I'll end up, I can feel because I'm pushing, also boom, it goes through.
Right.
And then I hit something else. It could be, I hate to say, maybe a skull or something, and I go push down through the rest of it, and then I can hit the bottom of it, and I can tell it's probably like about 3 or 4 inches. That tells me that's a collapsed grave. You know?
Yeah, because it's a cavity.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, we're almost there. And we got 6 minutes to go. I think we might make it. Teach it forward. Hey, that's Damn It Bob.
Yeah. I was wondering, is that meant for me?
No,
Oh,
no.
no.
Actually, I did not even
Oh,
put that
you
together.
I'm
Uh,
looking at that. You know.
No. So Teach It Forward is a
Damn it,
friend
Bob.
his name is Bob. He's a friend of mine. I've known him for many years, and he makes a lot of sarcastic jokes
Comments.
and comments throughout the show. And I got into the practice of going, "Damn it, Bob," because he would make good.
Well, that
He was funny. He was funny.
that had Nick used that with me a few times. Damn it, Bob! Can't you? You know, you're always saying it's a probability. Go ahead.
Okay. So when you do jobs outside your area, I suppose you drive because of all the equipment you need to bring. Like when you worked in the South and the West, you drove to those locations?
A lot of them I fly to because I can take the equipment apart, package it up, and then either ship it or take it with me on the plane. I don't do any mapping cemeteries outside of the New England area. I have in the past, but you're talking too much equipment to carry around with you.
Right.
I have containers that I can put the radar in. I can fit. I have another large container that I put my the cart that you see in, and because this thing collapsed down right to I could put I take the wheels off. I can put this in the back seat of my truck.
Okay. Yeah.
Goes right from there. So I don't really, I travel and I always package it up. If I can, down in Virginia, places like that, I'll drive. I like to drive, so I'll drive down there.
Okay.
I've done jobs in down in Savannah, Georgia, in Florida. I drove down there because I was actually going to move to Florida because I was saving that territory for myself because I've trained a half a dozen people in this business in different parts of the country, and so I get a job in the door that I don't want to go out to Texas with. I'll send the prospect to that particular person.
Okay.
And they'll go out and they'll talk and they'll get the job. But I was saving Florida for myself, so but I never made it to Florida
Oh.
except on work. I never moved down there. So
Right.
Right. That's funny.
Wisdom. Is there something that GPR cannot see through? Lead?
not really that I can think of. Well, it really can't see through water.
Oh.
Okay, it can't see through water. It can see through ice, but it can't really see through water. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a scale of 1 to 81 of the different types of environments that GPR is useful for. I tried it at one time. What happened was that in a cemetery there was a gully in the cemetery with graves, and the water filled up in the thing, and there were probably maybe it was areas there that was probably maybe a foot and a half underwater. And so I tested that theory. I took my unit off and then I put it in a time mode versus a distant mode. Put it in a time mode, meaning is that I'm scanning as I'm rowboating across. I'm scanning on time, as I'm doing it. And I got no results at all from that. The water just kind of disinterred the whole thing. And the other thing too is I could be I could be on the back porch or someplace and scanning even trying to scan the ground on the back porch. And there's a gap between the back porch and the ground, and I won't that whole space area. I'm not going to catch. I'm not even going to get the GPR.
Wow, that's interesting.
I wonder if it's
Because it's
it's
not
because
solid.
it's scattered. It's scattered by water. Because when I worked for Siemens and I did the X-ray equipment in there, that's how we would test and calibrate some of the machines by a container of water because we would measure how much scatter was coming from the X-ray. So that's what I would guess, that there's too much scattering going on when the radio waves hit the
exactly, because it's like, for example, if you have like I showed you that anomaly there.
Yeah.
If you have say you have a nice U shape like this, nice U-shaped grave, whatever. Well, as that radar goes in the ground, it disperses. So what you see at the top, say it's a U shape like this at the top, like he showed you there.
Right.
Down below, 20, 30 feet down below, 20 feet down below, it's going to be like this.
Yeah.
It disperses.
Inverse square law. Yeah.
It disperses. So there's big. Now the only experience I have with, like I said, the only experience I have in reference to using water is that the fact is that I tried it on the rowboat and I couldn't get anything.
So does that would moisture content affect your readings.
No, actually, sometimes the moisture in the ground helps.
Oh,
It
okay.
does help a little bit. It does help a little bit. The only problem that you have with moisture, like wet grass and seeing like this here, there's a tracking wheel that sits against the big wheel. Okay. And what I mean by that, you remember back in the old days, you used to have this little light thing that was on the side of a bicycle. And as you're driving, it would light up, it would light a light like a generator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, basically it's the same thing on the cart here. And that controls the distance as you're going across the ground. Okay. That controls the wheel that's on that like when that wheel gets wet, it slides. So you could be pushing the thing on, not getting, and the radar's not going further. But what I did was that I had an old sewing machine, and it had a little small belt in there. They had a knurled surface belt. And I took that off, and it just fits that Dakota wheel.
Wow.
And so now, if I need to, if I'm in a wet area, I have that. I put that on the Dakota wheel, and then I can scan and I can keep it going.
It's enough tension to keep it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Contact. So you're not losing contact; it's just slipping, and so that's going to mess up the distance.
Yeah. I mean, there could be other things out there that it can't see through, but not that I know of. Not that I know of. Well, a good example of this to show you how it works. Back, I don't know how many years ago, 20 years ago, I was told, I heard, I actually watched a documentary where they actually used ground penetrating radar on ice to locate a P-38 or one of these big planes that landed in the Second World War on the ice cap. And they actually dug a big hole in the ice. They dug a big, entranceway to go down to the ice, and they took apart the plane. They brought it up. It was like a bomber.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it was down 200 feet, and GPR picked it up.
That's cool. I like that. Teach it forward. I think we need a second night. What happened here? Second night with Bob, maybe later this year. He has so many interesting stories, and he's a great storyteller. See, I told you they love you.
Oh yeah. Well, being my first podcast, so
yeah, this is great.
Yeah,
I'm totally
you're
gonna.
doing
I'm gonna
great.
push that. I'm gonna promote that.
like I said, if anybody's interested, go on my website. If they have any questions, I'll try to get to it as soon as I can. The questions like this, they can just email me the questions, and I can answer the questions. I'm also on LinkedIn. If you ever go on LinkedIn, I'm on there quite a bit. And under ground penetrating radar, because I post a lot of the stuff that I do, a lot of my images and the scanning things that I do, and and I'm always debating with I have my education is a 2-year technical illustration art class. My background, so I'm not like these engineers, I like these PhDs and stuff like that, but they all come to me to ask me questions.
Awesome.
In fact, the company that manufactures equipment, they want me to do a lunchtime thing with them. With all they come out and they ask me, but these are all brainy guys that manufacture and develop this equipment. I'd be like this talking in front of them. They're questioning me on something I can't answer.
Right. We talked about this.
Yeah.
Off camera, we talked about this, and I told you, you have the experience, you have the knowledge, you've done it for so long, and look at you now. There's been 70 to 80 people watching you during this whole show throughout these 2 hours, and you have been calm, collective. You've been able to tell us your stories without any problem. So I don't have any doubt whatsoever that you could get up in front of a class of 20 people or so and teach them what you know. It doesn't matter if they're brainy people or academics. Well, you're the one with the expertise.
Well, I always put on a little bit of a lecture when I go to a job, because if they advertise the fact I'm going to be at a job, I guarantee there's going to be 20, 30 people there to see what I'm doing that they want to watch. So right. I give them, the first half hour, I give them a presentation. I talk to them about what it is that I do. But this GPR stuff, here you are, you're standing in front of 30 guys that invented this stuff. And they're going to ask me a question I'm not going to be able to answer. I said, I don't know, I mean, I know how to use the equipment. I know how to find grades, right. But, if the technical part of it, how they do it, I just know how to use the equipment. So that's what it comes down to. So
that's it, that's all. But again, it comes down to you, your experience, and that's what they're looking for.
Yeah.
You know, you can have a PhD, and I'm not knocking it.
No, you can build something.
You can build something, or you can study for years in school and learn about it. But then when you get out into the real world, into the practical use of it, it's different. When I worked in aerospace, I worked with engineers all the time, and we clashed.
Yeah.
I built the stuff, they designed it, and I would go in almost every day and say, "What you drew here does not work in the real world.
Yeah.
We need to fix this, and we have to do this." So you have the knowledge and the understanding of it, and I
Yeah, I even wrote a book on it.
yeah, you wrote a book. Do it, man. Do it.
In fact, I have my second. I'm working on my second edition of the book now.
Awesome.
Oh, that's great.
That's awesome. Cool. All right. Are we good? We have any more?
Yeah, this is the only question.
Last question. Oh, is the cake all gone? No,
Yeah.
the rum cake. Last week was my birthday. So I was gifted a box of rum cake, which is my favorite cake. And it's not going yet. I'm trying to pace myself because I'm already fat enough. I do not need to gain like 20 pounds in a week.
Hey, you know what it is? You get out there and walk. I do really. I probably do 50,000 steps a week. I do 10,000 steps a day.
So that's
I take Sundays off, but every day I do 10,000 steps. And I went from 194. Right now I'm at 165 and a half.
Wow.
As of last night, I weighed myself at the gym last night.
Okay.
It's all from walking.
There you go, guys.
All right.
And the funny part about it is that my daughter and my two daughters compete with me.
Oh,
We compete. So every night, what I do is I'll go on my watch and I'll show them how many steps I did today. I don't think you can see that enough.
yeah.
Oh yeah, 11,862. Nice.
That's how many steps I do today.
There you
That's
go.
cool.
So what we do, then we post it. We post it on the thing there. So
See, that's what I need. I need a
I can do
competition
that with you.
because I hate losing. I love.
Oh,
I am so competitive.
she's
So-
sitting right beside you.
I
Right
know.
beside you.
I'm like the most competitive person. You say it
I
all
know.
the time.
To this day,
Hello?
we will never ever play Monopoly together again.
He won't play any board
Because
game with me.
She is so competitive. She yells at me. She tries to convince other players to go against me.
That's because if you beat me, no one else is
Does she play dominoes?
Oh no.
No.
I haven't
Oh yeah.
played dominoes.
I like my wife and I play well. You know, she goes out. My wife is probably more active now after she retired than anything because she plays cards one day, then she plays dominoes, then she's got this Japanese thing that she goes, and she does all kinds of other good stuff. You know, so
I like
health bar weight loss challenge.
program.
that. We need a straight loss.
Challenge.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do that. Maybe.
Oh, you can get me in on that.
Oh,
Oh,
You
there
get me in on that. In fact, you got probably a lot of other people out there that might want to do it. All you have to do is, like I do it on instant message. You know, you have a little thing, do instant message, and I'll post it up on instant messenger
all right.
Make a
on
little
Facebook.
group.
I'm writing it a note
We'll make
now.
a group.
So we're gonna make a group. We'll have our skeptical help bar weight loss program group, and we'll walk all week, and then on Friday nights we'll drink.
Oh yeah.
And I've got I got 2 pages up on Facebook. One is for ground pen. One is for topographers for finding graves and stuff like that. And the other one is called the other page that I got is called In Search of Elusive Treasures. It's a
Ooh.
treasure hunting page.
Okay.
And a lot of times I use my equipment to go out and find treasure, look for treasure and stuff like that. So I've had it on the beach. I'm a big a big ring hunter during the spring, summer, and fall. So
I wanted to do that, like get a metal detector and just walk the beach. I hate the beach because it's hot, it's boring.
Oh
There's
my god, I love this.
she loves
Oh,
laying on the
Love
beach,
it.
and if I could have a metal detector or something just to go up and down, I would.
That's exactly.
go.
That's the only way I can get him to go.
Yeah.
we go to the beach with my friends sometimes, and I leave a guy, his wife, and my wife all by themselves, and I hit the beach.
Nice. Nice.
I might be out there for 2 hours, then I'll come back to the tent, the chairs.
All right, so we are at the end of the show. I want to thank you so much, Bob, for spending the last 2 hours with us and telling us about your work and entertaining us with all your awesome stories, amazing stories. It's been so much fun. I've seen nothing but positive comments in the chat.
Yeah, everybody loves it.
So it's really, really, really awesome to have you on. And everyone go to his websites. I posted it in the chat. I will put it up here. This is, let's see. Right now, that's your company website, right?
Yeah, it's a company website. Yep.
Okay. And then if you go on YouTube and search for Bone Finder, that's actually the name.
Yeah, if you do Bob Perry Bone Finder on Google, you'll find all kinds of stuff that I do on there. Then you can always track me down to that. And if you just put Bob Perry in front of the topographics, then that's my that's my email address.
Okay, great. So with that, we're going to wrap it up. Everyone have a great weekend. Never stop learning and just enjoy the weekend. I'm not going to go through a whole bunch of calendar stuff. I'll do that next time. There is no show next week because I'll be away. I'm heading out on business, so it won't be a show next week.
So if you celebrate Easter, enjoy your Easter weekend.
Yeah, have a good Easter. And then we'll be back with, I think Tim Binga is going to be our next guest. I believe so. Let me look real quick. So yeah, the 25th, we're going to have Tim Binga, our librarian, on. He's going to be our guest for the night. We're going to talk about research and stuff like that. But I'm going to close out the show. Bob, stay on. After the outro video, which is like 2 minutes or something like that. Once it's over and everything's done, stay on. The screen will go black, but I'll bring you back on for a minute. Okay?
Okay. Yep.
All right. Everyone else, have a great weekend. Love you guys. And we'll see you in 2 weeks. Let's see.
Hey, diddle diddle, here's a little riddle. Who's the best at bunker? Is it Kenny Biddle? Oh, he's good, not just a little. Not at the bottom or even the middle. Strike a chord like a fiddle. Tasting the rainbow like a skill that's fragile and brittle. You can watch him take a problem and start to riddle the problem away. He does not play, he takes his job so seriously. He loves a challenge and won't turn you away. It's such a skeptic, he keeps those believers exposing the fake. It wouldn't take him long to find a needle in hay. Use a magnet, damn it. Now take a drink of Kenny's specialty. Some may say that's not for me. To each their own, what it will be. Man, Kenny's such a skeptic, drinking skeptical tea. Like and subscribe, everybody turn notifications on. And go watch his show and forget about this song. Mr. Wizard or Bill Nye the Science Guy, can you remember? You like Kenny better, so head to the skeptical help bar and meet the bartender. Pick up a drink and relax, cause nobody does this better. Not even close, not even a little. He's the one and only Kenny Biddle.